That's the nature of a typical firefighter. It can't happen to me attitude.
To the young guys that think that it won't happen to them, they're wrong. The statistics are showing that cancer is prevalent in the fire service.
I'm Steve Wiseman. My current position is Deputy Chief with Stafford County Fire and Rescue Department. I started in 1974 in a small town outside of New York City. So it's close to 43 years as a firefighter.
My name is Jay Cullinan. I'm the Fire Chief in Spotsylvania County. I've been in the fire service since 1992, joining as a volunteer firefighter in Goochland County when I turned 16. And got hired here in Spotsylvania in 1996. I was diagnosed in 2011 with testicular cancer.
It was just about a year ago. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer.
So I went to my annual physical, which we've been fortunate to have annual physicals in Spotsylvania County for years. Started off that day, of course, the usual jokes about going to the physical and doing the coughing and everything else. And the doctor basically said, after he had me turn my head and cough, said, "Huh." And it's never good to hear your doctor say, "Huh." So he said, "You got a lump there. You might want to go get it checked out." So I put it off for a few weeks, and finally went to go see my primary care physician. And he said, "Well, it's probably nothing, but I'll send you to a specialist to go ahead and get things checked out." So I went to a urologist where they did an ultrasound. Again, the ultrasound technician came back and said, "Huh." And later met with the urologist, 15 minutes later, and at that point he came in and said, "You've got cancer, and this is what we're going to do to fix the problem." So it's definitely an impactful statement to have someone come out and say that, especially when you were in denial and playing it down in your mind the entire time, saying this is probably nothing, it'll go away, and just definitely hits you when you finally get the news.
I went for my annual physical, and like a typical firefighter, a couple days later after your physical, you get the envelope in the mail. And what did I do? I put it on my desk and ignored it, so I knew what it was. A few days later, I opened the envelope up, and then inside the envelope was the results of my physical, and there was a sticky note attached to it that says, "Go see your doctor, your PSA level was elevated." Like a typical firefighter, I threw it in my corner of my desk, didn't say a word, didn't do anything, and finally said, "Hey, I better go get it checked." So I made an appointment, saw a urologist, and at that point he said, "Your level's elevated too fast, it's concerning, let's do a biopsy." And he explained the process to me. That in itself was scary. The biopsy, I will tell you, is probably one of the most painful things I've been through. I've had minor burns, injuries on the job, nothing compared to the biopsy. I went through the biopsy. The results, according to the doctor, was going to take about a week. And so I was sitting at home one day and the phone rings. And saw on the caller ID, it was Mary Washington Hospital. answered the phone. It was the doctor on the other side. I said, "Hey, Steve, the results came back. You got cancer. Be in my office tomorrow." So what did I do? Put the phone down and cried. Called my wife. Got through that. No issue. We met the doctor, and he gave me the results. And the treatment. We identified 3 different types of treatment, and there was some discussion which one would be the best for me. And we chose in the long run surgery to get it out of my body. I did not want it in me. I did not want to go through the radiation, which I had an option to do. I went through it, and everything went well. Surgery was successful. Couple of post-operative issues arose. So next month's a year. Keeping my fingers crossed. Went for my blood work last week for my 1-year checkup, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed it comes back good.
I had probably, I'd taught, of course, several classes before. I would teach Officer 1 class or Officer 2, any of the leadership programs, and you would get to the health and safety part, and I would, out of the side of my mouth say, we're all probably exposed to this stuff. We'll develop something, eventually. It all comes rushing back at that moment to think, well, this is probably a result of, whether it was the house fires, whether it was the car fires, or whatever else the hazmat calls, or sitting in a firehouse where, the tanker would start up and the entire firehouse would fill up with diesel exhaust in a couple seconds because it was just a old motor. All those different things that may have caused it come flashing back through your mind. And that's the challenge. I mean, we're exposed to so much. I was fortunate to come into the fire service at a point where it was very acceptable and encouraged to wear an SCBA. There were plenty of times where you're immediately outside the fire and being exposed to whatever else in there. So I thought I was protected, at least through my lungs, by that, but I had no clue about the hazard of the toxins coming through your gear. I had no idea about the absorption of the carcinogens. Yeah, I was just like everyone else. You take a shower for 3 days later and you're still smelling the smoke that's coming out of your pores. But at this point, hundreds of house fires that I had been through, the same hundreds of car fires, all the hazmat incidents, being in an old firehouse, which I love the pride and history of being in an old firehouse, but we were constantly exposing ourselves as well as our gear hanging up in the station to all that exhaust that was just pouring out of those old rigs. I think, where my gear hangs as a volunteer, I'm much more careful now about how I set it up, as far as having the biker pants and the boots exposed or having those covered up. But for years my gear sat open right beside where the exhaust of the truck passed out of the station. So it's one of those things that I had really never given full attention to at that point.
We know better now. We know that these things are killing us. The off-gassing of these chemicals, and there's hundreds of these carcinogens that we breathe in and that are absorbed through our skin. These are the things that are killing us, and now, in retrospect, you sit back and go, I started years ago and it was legacy construction. It was nothing to burn. Now, the chemicals that we're breathing in are killing us. We have the ability, we have the mindset and the tools to make this safer for us. Yeah, I can't predict if that building is going to collapse. But when they come out of that fire, I can do everything in my power to make sure that they leave this incident scene safe and healthy. And that's the mindset we have to bring. There's more to just going in and extinguishing a fire. It's to make sure that we take care of our people and our folks' top priority. You know, it goes back to, again, making sure as a leader of an organization, and I'll say this to all the fire service leaders, you got to have a cancer prevention program for your organization. But more importantly, you could have the program, but you have to hold the individuals underneath accountable. So the program's there, but are we doing the right things? And we need to make sure we do a follow-up. Annual physicals. Don't throw the piece of paper on the desk and say, oh, I know what the answer is, I'll look at it in a couple days. No. Get your physicals, keep your gear clean, wash your stuff, and do the right thing. You can pick up a bad behavior in 30 seconds, and it can take 30 years to change that behavior. It's difficult, but again, it starts with the leaders in the organization. They're the ones that have to set the standard. They have to hold everyone accountable, and they need to walk the talk.
Cancer prevention is not stopping you from doing your job. Cancer prevention is telling you how to improve in doing your job, how to make your job safer for you as an individual. For example, wearing your SCBA from start to finish. Traditionally in the fire service, we go in, we put the fire out. Shortly thereafter, we're into the overhaul stage, and the first thing that is removed is the face piece off of the SCBA. Some people continue to wear the SCBA with a mask dangling down. Why do we do that? Out of habit. So we need to change that habit in wearing your SCBA throughout overhaul. Studies again have shown that the products that are being off-gassed from those smoldering hot spots, things of that nature, while we don't have that mask off, are just as dangerous as the fire that we're going in to fight.
Wake up. You gotta wake up. The reality is there's no more badge of honor. The badge of honor's gotta go. You can't have that salty helmet. You can't walk around in dirty gear and show the younger guys that I'm the hero. No, you're not. Wake up, because what you have on your gear is gonna turn around and kill you. And more importantly, it goes back to family. You have to realize what you're doing, the standard that you're setting, what you're not doing on the incident scene to make sure you're healthy will affect your families, and we can't have that. There's too many firefighters dying of cancer at a younger and younger age, and that's just plain not right.